Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, I am going to be talking about the best, the worst, and the most disappointing books I read in 2020. For this video, I will be talking about the 3 best, the 3 worst, and the 3 most disappointing books I've read so far this year, since the year is almost over. Best and worst, I think, are pretty self-explanatory, but for most disappointing, I picked books that were not bad necessarily, but that didn't meet the expectations I had for them going in, so I still wanted to talk about them in this video. I guess I will start with most disappointing because that's what I have on the top of my stack of physical books here. So the number 3 most disappointing book that I read in 2020 was a book that I read not that long ago, Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. This is a recently published novel following Amanda and Clay, who are a married white couple from New York, pretty well off, and they rent a remote house on Long Island for a summer vacation with their 2 kids. However, one night shortly after they arrive, an elderly black couple show up on the doorstep of their rental home. Their names are Ruth and GH, and they are the owners of this house who have unexpectedly come back from the city after blackouts have begun to ravage the East Coast with no explanation. And Amanda and Clay don't know if they can trust Ruth and GH, and they have no idea what is going on with the outside world as these families stay together at this house, neither really trusting the other. I really enjoyed the racial commentary in this, and I felt like Amanda and Clay were incredibly unlikable characters, but they felt very real in their unlikableness. I don't think that's a word, but their unlikability, that's the word. Their unlikability still felt real and rooted in reality. The reason this disappointed me so badly is because this book was advertised as a thriller, so I was thinking it was going to be like a Get Out style book. But this really is not a thriller, it is a literary fiction. I definitely think this was a case of the marketing for this book being all wrong. I went in expecting thrills, however, this book was really slow with very little plot. I found the writing incredibly pretentious, and there's no explanation about these blackouts or what is going on. The book ends extremely suddenly, without warning, and I just did not think it lived up to its true potential. I think if the publisher was going to advertise this book as a thriller, it should have had more thrilling plot elements and addressed at the end of the book what was going on with these blackouts in the outside world. Instead, the book ended very suddenly and it felt extremely unsatisfying. My number 3 worst book of 2020 was a book that I had to read for my senior seminar in college, and that was Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I read this at the end of August, and I did not like it at all. It was really hard to get through. This is a classic novel that follows our title character, and he's the only survivor of a shipwreck, and he is stranded on a deserted island where he has to learn to live. This book was boring because a majority of the book is just the main character being on an island alone. So again, not a lot of plot going on there. I also didn't like Robinson Crusoe. The reason that he got stranded on this island in the first place was because he was on a slaving ship. So the fact that he was literally selling people into slavery, yeah, he was not a nice guy. The depiction of non-white native peoples in this book was deeply disturbing and has not aged well, to say the least. And again, nothing really happened for most of the book, so it was a big thumbs down from me. Now, on a more positive note, my number 3 best book for 2020 is going to be Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh my god, it feels like it's been an eternity since I read this book, but it was back at the beginning of March when I was in spring break in Las Vegas for my 21st birthday. Feels like another lifetime. I feel like I have been in quarantine for 5 years or something. But yeah, that was just back in March, even though it feels like a lifetime. This book is written in the style of a series of interviews with members of the fictional rock band Daisy Jones and the Six, who are, I think, inspired by Fleetwood Mac. And it follows these different members of the band as they give their own perspectives on where things went wrong and why the band eventually broke up. I know some people didn't really like the interview style format in this book. However, I thought it worked really well, and I thought it was really clever given the plot of the story. I also adored that the lyrics of many of the band's songs were included, and I am really excited because this is getting adapted into a mini-series on, I believe, Amazon Prime, so I would be really excited to watch that and see the songs actually performed. I will say I did not love this book as much as I loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I really enjoyed it a lot. It was an excellent book and it did have some emotional moments, and I am so excited for Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid to come out next year. I think it is awesome how Taylor Jenkins Reid writes these books all in the same universe, and there was a reference to one of Evelyn Hugo's husbands in this book, which I picked up on right away. I love it when authors write books in an interconnected universe, so I'm really excited for another book by Taylor Jenkins Reid in 2021. Next, the number 2 most disappointing book I read in 2020 was An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This one was just okay, but considering that I really liked The Wife Between Us by the same authors, I was so disappointed by this one. It definitely didn't live up to my expectations. This book follows our main character, whose name I do not remember. I want to say her name was Ashley, Sarah, Amanda, something like that. Basically, our main character, whatever her name was, really needs money, so she signs up to participate in a psychology study on morality. But as the study continues, the doctor in charge of the study keeps pushing her farther and farther, and things unravel from there. My problem with this book is that for a mystery thriller, I didn't find it that thrilling, and nothing that surprising happened. The Wife Between Us had an amazing plot twist that genuinely blew my mind, and I don't think anything that unpredictable happened in this entire book. The number 2 worst book I read in 2020 was The Elizas by Sarah Shepard. I kind of ruined this book a little bit because I got it wet while reading it by the pool this summer, but I'm never going to read the book anyway, so what does it matter? This book follows Eliza Fontaine, I think her name is, yes. Eliza Fontaine, who is rescued after being found at the bottom of a hotel pool, and everyone in her family thinks that she attempted suicide because she has attempted suicide in the past, but Eliza is adamant that she was pushed. Wow, I can't speak. Words are hard. Eliza is adamant that she was pushed, and at the same time, Eliza's debut novel is coming out, and the novel ends up having eerie parallels to what is going on in her real life. I had so many problems with this book. I didn't like the main character. I did not like the romance that was going on here. There were a couple lines in the book that I found a bit offensive and culturally insensitive. I also didn't really like the excerpts from Eliza's book that were also included in here. While I usually like alternating point of views or a book within a book, I just didn't find the chapters of Eliza's book well written or interesting, and it was kind of annoying because people in this book are constantly telling the main character that she's a genius author and she's going to be famous, and I'm like, but her writing's not even good. I also think even though this was supposed to be a mystery, what was really going on wasn't that hard to figure out, so overall, this book was a thumbs down for me. I was previously underwhelmed by Sarah Shepard's first 2 books in the Amateurs series, But, you know, I'm just a fool who never learns, so I will probably give some of her other books another chance, cause, you know, I'm just stupidly optimistic like that. The number 2 best book that I read in 2020 so far is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I absolutely adored this book and was spellbound by it. This is a historical fiction about the Shakespeare family, and it takes place during the plague epidemic in Stratford-upon-Avon that ends up killing the Shakespeare's son, Hamnet. And it talks a little bit about how Hamnet's death might have inspired Shakespeare's writing of Hamlet, though this book is mostly about Shakespeare's wife, Agnes, who I thought was a very interesting character. Initially, I was a little apprehensive about the writing style of this when I started the first page, but after just a couple of pages, I was completely mesmerized by this book. I thought the writing was so lyrical and powerful and haunting, and I became incredibly emotionally invested in the story. Overall, this was a beautiful, emotional book, and it's one that has really stuck with me since I read it, so definitely one of my favorites of the year. Now, my number 1 most disappointing book. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you are not going to agree with me, but I was extremely disappointed and frustrated by Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I read The Last Time I Lied by him this year. Really loved that. Final Girls by him was okay. And I had such high expectations for this book because I know it's a lot of people's favorite Riley Sager, and I was really enjoying the beginning. This follows our main character who becomes an apartment sitter at a historic apartment building in New York City where a lot of wealthy people and celebrities have lived, and strange accidents and tragic occurrences have happened at the Bartholomew over the years. Our main character befriends another apartment sitter who then mysteriously vanishes, and so she wants to find out what happened to her. I was really interested in the beginning of this book, but it unraveled very quickly because the ending was so incredibly unbelievable that it genuinely made me angry. I know a lot of people love this book, but for me, the ending was one of the worst endings I've ever read in any thriller, and it was genuinely upsetting to me. I'm kind of upset right now thinking about it because I was enjoying the beginning of the book so much, and the ending was one of the stupidest resolutions to a mystery I think I've ever read. I guess it is theoretically possible, but the suspension of disbelief was too high for me. So I'm sorry, Riley Sager stans. This one was a letdown. For the number 1 worst book I read in 2020, that's going to be The Girls by Emma Cline. I have complained about this book in videos before, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. This, I thought, was a thriller, but like with Leave the World Behind, I think it's more so a literary fiction. It follows our main character who is living in the 60s in California, and she joins a cult. I think it is inspired by the Manson family, and there was a murder committed by the cult. However, the murder really is not an integral part of the book. It only happens at the very end and not even on the page, and then the book is over. The writing I found incredibly pretentious, and that is just not my style. I also hated the main character. She was a brat, and she was mean to her friends, and I just really was incredibly annoyed by her from start to finish. Again, I think this is a book that was advertised as a thriller, but nothing really thrilling happened in it, and it was pretty boring from start to finish. There were also some really icky sexual assault scenarios that were just very disturbing to read about, did not like how they were handled, and overall, this book was just not that interesting. This is a love it or hate it kind of book, it seems, and I was firmly in the hate it camp. And finally, to end this video on a positive note, the #1 best book I read this year was Circe by Madeline Miller. Another book that I was just completely mesmerized by. I loved the story, I loved the main character, I loved the writing. It was amazing. This is a feminist retelling of the story of Circe, who is the witch from the Odyssey, and I just really loved what this book did with her story and her character. I was really rooting for her, and I appreciated the different nods to other stories from mythology. I thought the writing in this was absolutely beautiful, and though there was a sexual assault in this book, it was not depicted in graphic detail, and I think it was handled in a more sensitive way than some of the other books I read this year that had sexual assault or rape handled the issue. Ultimately, this is an impactful mythology retelling about a woman finding her own power, and I really connected to Circe. I was so invested in her character. I absolutely loved this book, and I am excited to read The Song of Achilles, also by Madeline Miller. I definitely think I will buy any books that she comes out with, and I definitely want to find more books that are retellings of Greek mythology. So there you have it. These were my best, worst, and most disappointing books of 2020. Let me know in the comments section, what was your favorite book you read this year, your least favorite, and or the book that disappointed you the most? Please like this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every single Wednesday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a divine rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you in the next one.